I was limping down the sidewalk with my 6-month-old daughter in my arms when a black SUV suddenly stopped beside me. The driver's door flew open, and my father jumped out. He stared at my swollen ankle, then at the diaper bag cutting into my shoulder. "Where's your car?" he demanded. I tried to smile, but tears came first. "My mother-in-law took it," I whispered. "She said I haven't earned the right to drive it." My father's jaw tightened. "Get in," he said quietly. "At exactly 8 o'clock tonight, they're going to learn they picked the wrong daughter to control." My name is Hannah Brooks. I'm 32 years old, and until 6 months ago, I worked as a pediatric occupational therapist. Right now, I'm on maternity leave, spending every day caring for my beautiful daughter, Lily. People always say becoming a mother changes your life. They're right. What they don't tell you is how quickly you can lose yourself when someone decides to control every part of it. Before I married my husband, Ryan, I was independent. I had my own apartment, my own career, and my own car. My father used to joke that I never asked anyone for help because I liked proving I could solve every problem myself. Then, he accepted a 3-year engineering project overseas. We still talked every week, but 12 time zones and busy schedules slowly turned daily conversations into monthly phone calls. I kept telling him everything was fine, because I wanted to believe it was. Ryan wasn't a bad husband. He worked 12-hour shifts managing a manufacturing plant and genuinely loved Lily and me. The problem wasn't Ryan. It was his mother. Margaret had moved into our home shortly after Lily was born to help us adjust. At first, I appreciated it. She cooked meals, folded laundry, and insisted I focus on recovering. But little by little, helping turned into controlling. She decided what I should eat, what time Lily should sleep, who could visit, when I was allowed to leave the house. Every decision somehow became hers. Then one morning, she held out her hand. "Give me your car keys." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. "Ryan makes the payments," she said calmly. "Until you're back at work contributing again, the car belongs to this household, not you." Before I could respond, she'd slipped the keys into her purse. Ryan was already gone for work. I told myself I'd explain everything when he came home, but every evening something came up. He looked exhausted. Margaret always answered questions before I could. She didn't need the car today. I already took the baby where she needed to go. Everything's under control. Weeks became months. Eventually, walking everywhere became my normal. Doctor appointments, the grocery store, the pharmacy, always carrying Lily, always pretending everything was fine. One humid Thursday afternoon, I was limping home after Lily's pediatric appointment. My ankle still hadn't fully healed from a fall a few weeks earlier, and every step sent pain through my leg. Lily had finally fallen asleep against my shoulder. The diaper bag felt heavier with every block. Then a black SUV suddenly slowed beside me. The driver's door flew open. A man stepped out. For a second, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. "Dad." He looked from my swollen ankle to the sleeping baby in my arms. Then he looked behind me. "Where's your car?" I forced a smile. "It's complicated." He stepped closer. "Hannah." That one word shattered every wall I'd spent months building. Tears rolled down my face before I could stop them. "My mother-in-law took it," I whispered. He stared at me for several long seconds. Then he carefully opened the passenger door. "Get Lily inside." I climbed into the SUV without another word. As he started the engine, his voice remained calm. "We're not going home yet." He glanced at me once. "First, I need to confirm something." Dad didn't drive toward my house. Instead, he pulled into a quiet cafe overlooking a small neighborhood park. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions. He carried Lily's stroller from the back of his SUV while I settled into a booth near the window. He ordered tea for himself, hot chocolate for me, and waited until Lily finished her bottle before speaking. That was my father. He never rushed into a problem. He wanted to understand it first. "So," he said gently, "start at the beginning." I stared into my cup. "It isn't one big thing. It's 100 little things." He nodded. "Tell me about the first one." I took a slow breath. After Lily was born, Margaret said she was only staying for a few weeks. Then she started making all the decisions. I explained how she chose Lily's feeding schedule without asking me, how she rearranged the nursery because she claimed my setup was unsafe, how she criticized everything from the clothes I wore to the way I held my own daughter. Dad listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked quietly, "What happened after she took your car?" I looked down at my hands. Everything got smaller. "What do you mean?" "I couldn't visit friends unless she approved. If I wanted groceries, I had to ask. She started giving me cash instead of letting me use my own debit card because she said maternity leave meant I wasn't earning anything." Dad frowned. "Your own account?" She convinced Ryan it would be easier if she handled household expenses while I recovered. I swallowed hard. I even stopped calling people.
Why?
Because she always wanted to know who I was talking to. If I stayed on the phone too long, she'd ask questions. If I smiled after hanging up, she'd ask who made me smile. It became easier to stay quiet. Dad's jaw tightened. "Hannah." I reached into the diaper bag and pulled out my phone. "I kept everything." He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I couldn't tell anyone. So I saved the messages instead." I opened months of text conversations. One read, "You don't need the car tomorrow. Good mothers stay home." Another, "Ryan works too hard to pay for unnecessary trips." Another, "Hand me your keys before dinner. I'll keep them somewhere safe." Dad slowly read every message. His expression never changed. But I noticed something else. His hands had become perfectly still. He quietly asked, "Do you have anything else?" I opened my photo gallery. Pictures of the empty hook where my keys used to hang. Screenshots showing grocery money transferred to me in small amounts. Messages where I repeatedly asked for the car to attend appointments. Each request had been refused. Dad took out his own phone. Without saying a word, he photographed every screenshot and every message. Then he handed my phone back. "This isn't about a disagreement anymore," he said quietly. "This is a pattern." He looked at the clock on the cafe wall. 7:42 p.m. He stood, picked up Lily's stroller, and helped me to my feet. "We have just enough time." "For what?" I asked. His voice remained calm. "To make sure everyone hears the truth before anyone has another chance to hide it." At exactly 8 p.m., Dad parked his SUV in front of my house. The porch light was on. Ryan's truck had just pulled into the driveway a few minutes earlier. Dad turned off the engine and looked at me. "You don't have to say anything unless you want to." I nodded. "I know." He picked up Lily's car seat while I followed him toward the front door. Margaret opened it before we even knocked. The smile on her face disappeared the moment she saw my father. "What is this?" she asked. Dad remained perfectly calm. "I'd like to speak with everyone." Ryan walked into the hallway, loosening his tie. "Mr. Brooks." His eyes moved from me to Lily, then to my swollen ankle. "Hannah, what happened?" Before I could answer, Dad quietly placed his phone on the dining table. "I'd like you to read these." Ryan picked it up. The first screenshot showed Margaret's message demanding my car keys. The second showed her refusing to let me drive Lily to a doctor's appointment. The third showed repeated messages limiting grocery money and insisting I stay home. Ryan's forehead creased deeper with every swipe. He slowly looked at his mother. "Mom." She folded her arms. "I was trying to help." Dad answered before Ryan could. "Helping doesn't require taking another adult's independence." Margaret frowned. She had everything she needed. Dad shook his head. "She was walking to medical appointments while carrying your granddaughter." The room became painfully quiet. Ryan turned toward me. "Is that true?" I nodded. "I didn't want to add more pressure to your job." His shoulders dropped. "You should have told me." I tried. "You were always working, and every time I started explaining, someone else answered for me." Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, he looked directly at his mother. "Where are Hannah's car keys?" "They're safe, Mom." I asked where they are. Without another word, Margaret walked to the kitchen drawer and quietly placed the keys on the table. Ryan picked them up and handed them to me. "They belong to you." Then he took a slow breath. I should have been paying closer attention. He looked at his mother. "I appreciate everything you've done for us. But from today forward, Hannah makes decisions for herself. And for Lily, no one else. Margaret started to protest. Ryan gently interrupted. This isn't a discussion. Dad finally smiled. Not because anyone had won, but because someone had finally listened. 3 weeks later, Ryan and I moved into a small home just 15 minutes away. It wasn't as large as the old house. It wasn't as impressive either. But when I hung my car keys by the front door that first evening, something inside me changed. For the first time since becoming a mother, I felt like I had my life back. Dad still visits every Sunday. Lily runs into his arms the moment he walks through the door. Sometimes we laugh about the afternoon he accidentally found me limping down the sidewalk. He always says the same thing. I thought I was rescuing my daughter. Then he smiles at Lily. But all I really did was remind her she never needed anyone's permission to be treated with respect.